So Toyota's had a pretty rough start with the Tundra, as the twin-turbo V6 has been needing to be replaced, and they've had to do at least about 100,000 units of the V6. Well, we're in 2025 now, and people are still buying these Tundras, so I want to know, is this a good truck to buy in 2025? Let's come and find out.
Toyota T100 Extra Cab.
Oh, did you think this was going to be a regular review? No. Let's go back to the 90s real quick. Yes, where times were simple, a Big Mac meal was only $3, and I wasn't even born. Toyota was at its prime, with the Camry and Corolla being the perfect economy go-getter, and hybrids were not even existent at the time. Toyota had also begun to bring out some more SUVs and trucks, including the new 4Runner and pickup. People started to seriously consider to purchase a Japanese utility vehicle over the American options, and at some point, that even brought out to supercars or even sports cars, and Toyota had developed one of the best gems that they have ever made, the Mark IV Supra, with the 2JZ twin-turbo inline-6 with a 6-speed manual. Though it was heavy, it's a video that I can just make itself that can last forever. However, Toyota had eventually decided to take on the big three and to develop their own full-size pickup truck, the T100. Rivaling the F-150 and the CK truck from Chevrolet, they decided to take on the big three, with the T100 starting with the V6, eventually bringing out the Tundra.
And now we are on the third generation of the Tundra. What started out in the early 90s as the Toyota pickup, eventually becoming the T100, to then the Toyota wanting to call it the T150, but Ford got pissed off by that, so they had to resort to calling it the Tundra. It's kind of funny how Toyota really had to resort into calling this a Tundra, and they didn't want to at the beginning, but it's obviously called the Tundra.
Yes, Ford. Where do I begin? Garbage. Get
that chicken.
Toyota was not going to negotiate without a deal, so they made a deal with Ford. That's with Lincoln taking out the LS6 and LS8 name to not get confused with the LS400 that Toyota sold. So they replaced the Toyota T150 to now the Tundra, and that's what we have today. But why replace the T100 name for the Tundra? Well, it comes for one simple reason. Chickens. Yes, chickens. You see, the T100 was manufactured in Japan and imported to the United States, so it was more expensive than the F-150 at the time, and the F-150 came with a V8, the T100 came with a V6. So Toyota decided to manufacture the Tundra in the Indiana plant at first, to eventually moving it into Texas, where we have it today. But there's a lot of configurations that you get with this generation of Tundra. You start out with this SR, which starts at $40,000. Then you go up to the SR5, which is this particular model. That starts at $48,000 with the crew cab and the short bed. If you want to get four-wheel drive, if you want to get the longer bed, it's going to cost more, above $50,000. And that's starting with the SR5. You, of course, do have the limited, you do have the platinum, you have the 1794 edition, and you also have the TRD Pro. And then the most expensive model, the most luxurious model, you have the capstone, which the prices in those trucks are astronomically expensive. I'm not going to even get into that. This particular truck right now is spec'd at $48,000, pretty much after destination, after taxes and everything like that. You're going to be above $50,000. And this doesn't even have four-wheel drive. It just has a normal twin-turbo V6, and it has a 10-speed automatic. But there's some stuff in the interior that does make it, I guess, nicer than what it was previously shown, but we're going to find out about that. But at least with the exterior styling with the Tundra, before I get into the inside, it does look sharp. The grille is humongous. The taillights and the back end is kind of interesting. It's a 50-50 thing whether you like it or not. Overall, the entire styling of the Tundra is unique comparing to the rest of the competitors. I do like the way this thing looks. It is definitely Toyota, as the Tundra has always had a unique style compared to the rest. And they're still going on strong, at least with the styling, and at least for you to know that you're not driving an F-150. You're not driving a Silverado. You're driving a Tundra. That's something that Toyota has always done. The other benefit that Toyota has finally done for this third generation is being able to configure your beds and your cabs. You still have a double cab that you can get with, of course, a long 8-foot bed if you really are so pleased to. But if you want to get a crew cab with a long bed, you're finally able to. That's something that everyone has been wanting the second generation Toyota, but they never offer that. So now with the third generation, you can get that. And you can, of course, still get the short bed like this particular model. And it's nice to at least be able to offer something like that. There's also features like the back window being able to fully come down that is still here in the Tundra. Thank God. I don't know why the Sequoia doesn't have that anymore. But at least the Tundra still has its iconic features when it first came out. So let's jump in the inside and let me show you the interior. All right, so this interior, it's very different in here. And it is actually a good thing. The big issue that I have is mostly the price of this truck. Given the fact that this is $50,000 as it's sitting really after taxes and destination and everything like that, I would hope that there's a couple more things in here. And in the end of the day, this should be at least spec that I was hoping maybe 45 grand. That's how I feel about this interior, at least being 45 to maybe close to $40,000. Then I would say this interior is quite worth it. Trucks in the end of the day are going to be more expensive. And when these trucks were brand new back in 2003, well, as a first generation Tundra, they were kind of the same price with the inflation equating here. So I wish that there was a few more things in here that you can get for the same price, if at least that. However, I like this interior a lot because this is simple. Everything is functional. The storage capacity in this truck is insane. I can fit 2 S24 Ultras into center console area where I actually have a specific place to put my phone. I also have 2 cup holders, one for one bigger one, one smaller one, or even then I have a little pull-out tray that I can have in my center console, and I have a huge amount of space in the center console of the Tundra. I even have storage inside built into the dash. I have, of course, a glove compartment. The storage in the doors are really good, and just all around this interior has been thought out really well. The steering wheel controls, though at first they are overwhelming, once you get used to it after about an hour or so, it's really easy to use. My radio controls mainly are in the bottom. My instrument cluster controls are on my left. And I, of course, on my right have adaptive cruise control. At least this truck has adaptive cruise control, which I'm thankful for. The other thing that I'm thankful for is the fact that Toyota did not change the rear window function. You can still bring the entire rear window down into the Tundra as long as if it's a crew cab. Doesn't matter if it's a 5-foot bed or a 6-foot bed. As long as it's a crew cab, that feature is there. And I am so thankful for that. Backseat space can fit a full-grown adult. You have zero issues with that. You have storage into the seats. You have storage in the bottom of the seats and as well as behind the seats. So they actually really did improve on making sure that you can fit as much garbage in here as much as possible. So Toyota has thought this interior out. And I can't say that this is a crap interior. Yes, there's plastics everywhere. I would more so bash on the trucks that are around $80,000 to $90,000, like the Capstone, where there's still a lot of plastics everywhere for that. Yes, it's a nicer interior. Yes, there's more tech, but something like this, where obviously almost everything is plastics, except for the parts that you're going to place your elbows and hands, that is soft touch, thank God. Majority of this interior is plastic. And at least that's a benefit when it comes down to just using this interior for what it is. You're going to use this for work. You're going to use this to beat this up. This interior is made for that. It's just, I wish it came with a couple more things or the price was a little lower to make this make more sense, if that makes sense. And talking about the bed really quick, I want to just mention this. This has a button here that just you basically press and it goes down automatically and it softly comes down for you. But it doesn't automatically come up or anything. It's just a little button that I wanted to point out. However, the best thing about this Tundra that I'm very happy that Toyota has done is that this is a fully composite bed. So very similar to the Tacomas back then, Toyota has switched over to the composite bed for the Tundras. And that benefits for you not having to put in a spray-in bed liner or a drop-in bed liner. You just use the composite bed as it is, and that's it. Obviously, that was going to increase the price for the Tundra, which that's something that Toyota can't justify for, but in the end of the day, it's still a little bit expensive. However, the best part about the Tundra, comparing to the second generation, you can get a 6-foot bed for your full crew cab. And the other thing, you can opt for plugs in the back, you can opt for lights in the back through the manufacturer, and even the jellyfish launchers are LED. So they have improved the bed a lot to make sure that this is a more functional truck and not just strictly down. You have a lot more functions in a Tundra. However, the one controversial thing is the rear end is a little questionable. And everyone's favorite conversation for the Tundra, that motor. So this has not had a great start for Toyota, as they've had to recall 100,000 units of the Lexus LX600 and the Tundra, and I believe a couple other vehicles as well, that comes equipped with the twin turbo V6. It's not been a great start. They've had to replace 100,000 engines because of debris being inside the internals of the motor and the engines going kaboom. So it's not been fun for Toyota. However, I'm hoping this engine is actually reliable after all the nitty-gritty issues. Do I think this is going to be more reliable than the V8s in the past? No. In the end of the day, you have extra Eternals in here. You have 2 extra turbos. You have a V6 that's stressing out to put almost 400 horsepower out. And in the end of the day, it is a more complicated engine to work on. And the iForce Maxes, though Toyota is a pioneer for hybrids, I do think it's going to be a good powertrain. It's still going to be a pain in the ass to work on. Regardless of the matter, these are going to be more expensive to maintain than the V8s in the past. And that's something that we all have to accept, and that's because of emissions and what direction Toyota is going for. That doesn't mean that this engine is terrible. So we're going to actually go for a drive, and we're going to actually see how this engine behaves.
Right. Let me see what this twin turbo V6 can do. All right, we're already at 65. We're on the highway though, so that's a good thing. So in terms of power in this V6, it's really, really good. I can say one thing. I cannot hate on this V6, but I do miss the V8. The V8 does have a character, and obviously when it comes to longevity and everything like that, it is easier to maintain. It is easier to last longer. This V6, it did have a rough start, but I don't have my doubts yet on whether this V6 is going to be a crappy motor or not. As of right now, it had a crappy start, and that's one thing that I can say. I'm not trying to be a Toyota super supporter or anything like that. I'm just trying to be blunt. I'm not confident with this engine just yet, but I'm hoping this engine is going to be good. As of right now, just the way it's performing and everything like that, it is a massive upgrade comparing to the V8. It doesn't sound as good, but comparing to power, comparing to weight, comparing to everything, it is excellent. And I really do think that this V6 has the potential to being a good engine for the Tundra and for the Sequoia and for everything else that's going to have this engine, all in general. Now, talking about the 10-speed really quick, when I first got in this truck, it was a little clunky, but after a little while, it's okay. It's very smooth. Yeah, I don't really have that many complaints to it, except when someone has a heavy foot, it does have a bit of a delay. Look, full throttle. Takes a minute to respond and to kick in. So I counted at least about 2.5 seconds for this thing to kick in. And after a while, once it actually kicks in and actually engages, it goes. I will say this engine goes. It's not as refined as Ford's and GM's 10-speed automatic just yet, but I do have a feeling this thing could, once it's tuned and tweaked correctly, this thing is going to be really, really good. I don't know how the iForce Max is going to be like. I don't know how those engines are, but I'm pretty sure it's a little bit better than this and it's a little bit quieter. But talking about the way this truck drives, for the SR5 model, it is a little bit stiff, okay? It does bounce a little bit everywhere. In certain bumps, this chassis does feel unsettled. Remember, in the end of the day, this is a truck, so obviously you're not gonna expect this thing to drive or ride like a Honda Ridgeline. But again, this thing can tow like almost 10,000 pounds more than a Honda Ridgeline, and it's a lot bigger. So this being a ladder frame, of course, don't expect this thing to ride like a Cadillac or anything like that. But comparing to like the F-150 or comparing to like the GMC or the Chevrolet Silverado, it doesn't ride as good.
And comparing to the Ram, which I still think that's one of the best riding trucks you can get, even before the air suspension, this thing doesn't ride as good as those. But it doesn't ride really bad at all either. So it really the only time you're going to notice that it is a little bit unsettled is mostly when you're going around bumps, when you're going around pavement and stuff like that, and it's an unsettled type of pavement. That's when you're going to feel that it's a little bit rough. But other than that, when you're driving on a flat road or you're driving on the highway around 70 miles an hour, number one, you don't feel like you're going 70 miles an hour. This thing is very, 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 how do I say this? I guess sophisticated or refined. That's the word. This thing feels very refined comparing to the last Tundra. It's very quiet. You don't hear any loud noises around. The engine is super quiet. It does sound like a V6, and when you're revving it out, you hear a little bit of the turbos and you also hear the V6, but it's not like it's a really bad or raspy V6 at all. It's very subtle. So the one thing that I can say about this Tundra is it's very different comparing to the last one. If you're expecting this thing to drive like a second generation Toyota or the Toyotas before, don't. It does not drive like that. It drives completely different, and it drives like a completely new vehicle. Toyota has worked hard to make sure that this is a completely new Tundra, and they've done a good job. I will be honest with you. The seating position is great. The blind spots are pretty good. It's not as great as some of the previous generations, but I mean, of course, you do have a lot more safety in here. You have a lot more airbags in here. You have a lot more things around this truck, you know. And to be honest with you, aside from some of the little small tweaks or issues that you may find in this Tundra, it's really good in here. I really like the way this truck sits. I really like the driving position, and I'll be honest, I sat here thinking that I was not gonna like it, and I'm not trying to say any crap or anything. I really did not think I was gonna like this truck. When I first saw this truck, I was not really impressed with it, and I was sad that the V8 was gone, though I wasn't surprised that Toyota was gonna do that. Now I'm driving this truck, and now I'm sitting here and observing the way this truck is, and I've grown to like it. Is it as good as some of the other competitors? It's really up to you whether you think so or not. It's very smooth. The V6, you hardly feel this thing idling. Right now, when the AC compressor kicks in and stuff like that, you feel a little bit of the idle. Like I'm feeling a little vibration right now. But other than that, this thing is super smooth. I really like the way this truck revs out. I love the turbos in this thing, the way Toyota has tuned it. The 10-speed, it's grown on me. When I first got in, I didn't like it, but it's grown on me a little bit. Now I'm kind of liking it more. It's not as responsive as my Sequoia. And I'm going to compare it to my Sequoia because it's essentially the same damn thing. So it's the Sequoia, for some reason, that 4-speed responds stupidly fast. This thing takes a minute to respond. And I'm sure it has to do with just the fact that it's turbos and everything like that. So everything has to respond and kick in. But once it does, it moves. It really does move. Fuel economy, how is it? When I was driving over here, I've been averaging around 20 miles a gallon when I've been driving softly and stuff. So it is better. I'm not going to say it's significantly better. On the highway, I average around maybe like 20, 21, maybe a little lower depending on how fast I'm driving. So it's not like it's a significant improvement comparing to my Sequoia or comparing to the second gen Tundra. Oh my God, it's a big difference. But don't expect this thing to be like a 25 to 30 mile a gallon truck where it's like a massive improvement comparing to the other trucks out there. So my overall thoughts on this truck, it's not terrible. There are things that I could feel that could improve, mainly just with the chassis refinement and stuff like that. It's not going to be as quiet. It's not going to be as good riding as the rest of the trucks out there. Even in this price range, I found that the F-150 was a bit smoother. I found that the Ram 1500 drives a lot better than this. And really, that's the only things that Toyota really has to improve on to make it competitive. But other than that, if you don't really care about those things, you just like the way it rides just as is. This is a truck that you have to test drive. You have to test drive it to see if you like it. Especially given the fact that your options are limited when it comes to powertrains. You can only get either a gas twin turbo V6 or a hybrid twin turbo V6. So if you want a V8, Tundra doesn't have a V8 anymore. You want a diesel, the Tundra obviously does not come diesel. So those are the things that you have to just take into account. This thing does tow pretty decently well. It can tow 12,000 pounds. It does have a decent payload capacity. So it is capable as an all-around truck. It's not as good as an F-150, but it's pretty close. It's better than the Titan, significantly better than the Titan. And ever since now the Titan's discontinuing, this is really the only Japanese pickup truck that you can buy in today's market. So with that said, I'm just going to jump into the conclusion on my thoughts on how I feel about the Tundra. So you're looking to buy a truck, and obviously you're shopping around, and Toyota has been in your mind quite recently. So how do I feel? This truck has improved a lot compared to the last generation. Yes, the V8 is gone. I miss the V8, and I'll be honest with you, longevity wise, this is not going to last as long as the Tundra previously. But if I'm going to be very honest with you, there's not a single truck that's going to last long until it has an issue pop up. In the end of the day, we're in this new era now where we're driving turbos, we're driving engines with cylinder deactivation, we're having transmissions that have 10 gears, almost rivaling semi-trucks. And in the end of the day, those things are going to have problems. So don't expect to sit in this truck and think that you're going to last over 200,000 miles without an issue popping up. Electronics have issues, engines have issues, turbos have issues. Things have a time limit with things, you know, and Toyota is now transitioning to something that's going to be different, and it's going to be a hard jump, and it's going to be difficult for them to keep the reputation of being the most reliable pickup truck out there. It's not to say that this Tundra is not going to be it's going to be unreliable. Right now they have a rough start, and I can't say whether it's going to be a really reliable truck or not. I mean, Ford has done the twin turbo V6 for a while. Chevrolet has a turbo 4-cylinder, which that obviously doesn't have a great reputation right now. But Ford has a decent reputation with the EcoBoost. And I will say, I feel like Toyota's going to have a good reputation with this once things get settled. So if you are looking for a truck, you want something that's capable, you want something that's good, you want a little bit of refinement, and you really don't trust the American automakers, the Tundra is not a bad pickup truck. So I would suggest do your research, make sure that you get the right warranty on this truck, and make sure you get the right configuration, as finally this is a much more flexible truck that you can buy. So I will catch you guys on the next video.